we've got a lot of information to pass along today, and I want to make sure we only have an hour, so I'd like to kind of get going here. I'm Debbie Duncan. I am the Director of Education Services at the New Jersey Center for Nonprofits. And basically, we provide three primary functions. We are your advocates and educators. We do some research, which I'll be referring to later on in the program. We provide education, such as these webinars and our conference help desk feed responses, etc. And then we are a membership organization, and our members, we serve everybody in New Jersey, any charitable nonprofit, mostly 501c3s. And but we are a membership organization, and as a member, you get certain benefits and discounts. So it's something to keep in mind. We are also members of the National Council of Nonprofits. And I like to show this map to let you know that across the country, there are state associations for nonprofits. So if you move, if you have friends in other states, let them know that the associations are there and they can go to them for assistance. Just a quick disclaimer, we are not attorneys. We don't want you to, you don't take what we say as a gospel. We're here to answer questions and provide you with knowledge and information. But certainly if you need legal advice or, if you have questions about things, consult with us. I can refer you to. So anyway, we can refer you to professionals that can meet your needs. For today, I'll be introducing Earl Sissel, who is from our sister organization across the river in Delaware, the Delaware Alliance for Nonprofit Advancement. And Earl is going to be presenting our program today, and this is something that Dana has been doing in Delaware, and so they've offered to provide it for our constituents here in New Jersey, and we're very grateful for that. So thank you for being here, Earl.
Well, you're welcome. It's my pleasure. Dana, like New Jersey, the Center for Nonprofits is a membership association of nonprofits in Delaware. In addition to the kind of work that your folks in New Jersey do, one of the other things that we do is that we provide customized support through a consulting pool to nonprofits in Delaware. And through a great arrangement we have with New Jersey, we're also going to begin offering opportunities there if you want support for the kinds of things that we're going to talk about today. And we have been spending a lot of time over the last 18 months or so helping to prepare organizations and to support them as they try to navigate what is a very uncertain time right now for nonprofits. I am the Vice President of Consulting here at Dana. There are two of us on staff who provide consulting support to nonprofits, and then we have a network of about 30 affiliated consultants in a variety of areas that support nonprofits with customized consulting support. And I myself, coming up on my fourth year with Dana, I've been in nonprofits for pretty much my entire career. I took a 5-year detour into finance and venture capital, and then came back. And I've been on staff in nonprofits. I've been a CEO and an executive director of 2 nonprofits, and I've served on a variety of nonprofit boards over my time in the sector. So I bring that experience with me, the sort of that ground level where the rubber meets the road with me to the work that I do here at Dana and with our nonprofit. So I want to thank New Jersey for inviting me to come today, and I'm looking forward to talking to you all over the course of about the next hour or so. What we're going to cover today is really looking at what's called scenario planning, and so we're going to talk a little bit about exactly what that is, We'll talk about some of the factors that are impacting nonprofits now. I'm sure you know these inside and out, but I think it's important to have some context in terms of, why is it that scenario planning is important. We'll talk about exploring risks and opportunities as you prepare for potential scenario planning, and then assessing the readiness and capacity of your organization to embark on a scenario planning uh, process. This is really what I'll say is a pretty high level look at scenario planning. There is another session a week from today where we're going to where if you want to attend that, we're really going to dig into some tools that Dana has available and which you all are welcome to use free of charge. Um, and we'll talk about that at the end. But just sort of to set the expectation, this is a pretty high level discussion of what it is and what it entails and what you need to think about. So there's a couple of terms to think about. One is contingency planning, and contingency planning is really focused on near-term planning for your organization. You have an emergency, something happens that is unexpected, it requires you to change course, and you need to change that course quickly. That would fall into contingency planning. What we are going to be talking about today is scenario planning. And it is really focused on a longer term timeline. It is designed to explore a range of possible futures and possibilities for the organization, both opportunities, positives, as well as considering what the downsides might be, and then outlining for your organization, uh, you know, what strategies you can use to adapt to the new situation that you're facing or potential situations. So we're going to be talking about scenario planning today. We talk about this in terms of being a VUCA environment. That is, we're currently in a situation that is volatile, that is uncertain, that is complex, and ambiguous. There is a lot that is unknown right now when it comes to the nonprofit sector. Um, some of the things that play into this is, potential, actual or potential defunding of organizations or reductions in funding, changing rules around what nonprofits can do and can't do, and how they're allowed to operate. Certainly, economic shifts, and particularly rapidly changing economic shifts in the last couple of months, and in some cases, actual hostility towards nonprofits as a general sector, but particularly some nonprofits that work in particular areas have experienced some direct hostility. All of those creating an environment in which it is difficult to manage and operate a nonprofit right now and to plan for the future. So that's what we mean when we say a VUCA environment. Um, some of the things that are creating that environment, and I want to highlight at the top of this slide the link to the National Council of Nonprofits Executive Order Tracker. It's a great resource if you're want to find out about sort of what's going on with executive orders, where they stand, are they enforced, are they not enforced, are they held up in court, all of those kinds of things. They do a really good job of keeping it up to date on a daily basis, and I encourage you to go there to keep up to date. But as we all know, executive orders, the overall downsizing of government, having fewer people doing the same amount of work or more work, the chilling, activities around chilling civic engagement, public accountability for government actions, reductions in funding for research, really executive orders around discouraging us from being engaged civic in civic life and in the work that we do. Funding freezes and activities, elimination of funding, potential elimination of funding, and targeting of nonprofits, all creating part of creating this uncertainty in the work that we do. Um, there's a number of particular legislative pieces that are also there. Of course, the big beautiful bill that was passed last year has had a tremendous impact on funding and potential funding in Medicare and other areas. Increased investment in immigration control in the military at the expense of much of the work that nonprofits do. Um, Requirements for departments to make significant cuts to their funding, not making them necessarily more efficient. Um, Elimination of the ACA subsidies that came up, obviously challenging in the healthcare sector and those of you who work there. The Save America Act, and future eliminations, reductions, funding in childcare, education, and other things. Clearly, the emphasis of the current government is not on funding the social safety net and the work of nonprofits, but in other areas. And all of that has obviously impacted the economic climate, which impacts nonprofits as well. Tariffs, costs of everything are going up, market declines that impact your reserves as nonprofits, as well as the funds available from foundations and corporate funders. Um, Shrinking an already shrinking pie, it's accelerated that reduction in funding available to nonprofits to do their work. Softer individual portfolios when your donors portfolio investment portfolios go down, their ability to contribute individually goes down. It makes them think about how much they're going to give, when they're going to give, all of those kinds of things. Higher fuel and raw material, driving inflation and reducing folks' discretionary spending. Uncertainty about the job market obviously hinders giving, and just the overall fragility of the economic situation, and the apparent attempt to push a lot of things that have traditionally been funded through federal efforts and funding going to nonprofits from federal efforts, pushing those kind the pushing the funding for those to the state level, which then in turn puts pressure on state and local revenues in budgets, and their ability to fund what they have supported in the past. All of those impacting us as nonprofit organizations. And of course, all of that then impacts the folks we serve, right? It all ripples out. Federal and workforce layoffs, individual populations that have been targeted, LGBTQ plus community, the immigration community, housing funding, all of those kinds of things, really impacting the folks we work with, particularly immigration, feeling a lot of folks not wanting to come out, not wanting to seek help because out of fear of what might happen to them. Impact on our individual communities through funding at the federal and state level. Again, the shifting burden to states, and the increased burden on individuals.
I'm going to jump in here to give you some New Jersey specific news. I mentioned earlier that the center does some research, and every year we do our Trends and Outlook survey of New Jersey nonprofits. This is on our webpage. There are multiple years of them on the webpage, so I always encourage you to go and look under publication. But what we found this year, it hasn't changed a lot, but obviously one of the top challenges is the funding decrease, both from the federal government and, as Earl was referring to, sometimes other donors. And also, this happens at a time when there is increased demand for services, because there have been service cuts, there have been budget cuts, et cetera. The second top challenge was the impact of federal directives. We have a program tomorrow talking about the DEI directives and what's really legal and what isn't. But some of the federal requirements for funding are requiring certain statements, certain commitments, certain assurances, and it can be difficult for nonprofits to navigate. The other one was a need for a stronger board. This is an awareness that has been growing in the last few years. Boards are important, and having a strong, educated, really committed, but also effective board is really important. And again, the center can help you with resources, for building your board and educating your board. There are increased benefits and insurance costs. I know my home insurance went up this year significantly. So these are, additional costs that nonprofits are facing. And also one of the problems is affording enough good staff. Again, as numbers go down, as the cost of living goes up, these are challenges that we all deal with. The other thing that I want to share with you has to do with our advocacy and actions on a government level. We have met with both Governor Sherrill and Lieutenant Governor Dale Caldwell, and they have made a commitment to school mental health, to immigrant protection, to hunger, and to meeting community needs. They also have a process in place to make sure nonprofits are included in the decision making and to support the advocacy rights of nonprofits. And then finally, we have been sponsors of government reform legislation for a very long time, and that has been reintroduced to both houses to help streamline state contract and grant processes. So those are some of the things that are happening on our end. There's more, but if you aren't on our email list, make sure you are. The center's policy update page, I will be sending you that link to find out what's going on, currently. And then we also have a page of resources to navigate uncertainty on our website. So come to us. You'll be getting my email address, and let us know how we can support you. Back to Earl.
Danielle, do we have any questions in the chat at this point? Or does anyone have any questions?
No, not yet.
Okay. So with all of that, uncertainty, ambiguity, complexity, the question comes to, so what do we do about it? I think for a lot of organizations, there is a temptation, given how uncertain things are, to maybe stick your head in the sand. They said they're going to do that, but they haven't done it yet, and I have enough other stuff to do, so I'm just going to wait until something actually happens. Because it may not happen anyway, so why plan? And that's going to take a lot of time. It's going to take a lot of energy. We all have a lot of other things to do on a daily basis, so I'll just wait. The other option is to actually jump in and make plans to take action so that when things do happen, there's a plan to follow. Everyone understands what that plan is. You understand what the timeline is and how long you have to make whatever changes need to be made. And while it does take a lot of energy and a lot of effort up front, it's going to put you in a much better place um, when and if the things you think might happen, those risks come to fruition. It's going to make it much easier for your organization to respond and for you to take advantage. And there can be advantages um, of situations that come up. So, our recommendation is to start doing the planning now so you're prepared in the future. Um, so, in terms of scenario planning, why is it important? Um, what makes it important? First, it really focuses on the core mission of your organization and those that you serve. It can be a real opportunity to assess your overall organization's work and to sort of focus on those things that are most important to what you do versus those things that maybe you do because they just were opportunities that came up. So it's really an opportunity to assess what is our core mission and who is it we're really serving. It builds awareness around the current state of the organization. Where are you now? What funds do you have available? What are where are as an organization your pressure points? Debbie mentioned staff. What is our staff doing? Who's doing what? If X happens, how is that going to impact them? So it puts you in a position to really honestly assess your current state. You want to analyze your external landscape. We do not operate, no organization operates in a vacuum. Other organizations do things similar to what you do in most cases. Um, and to sort of really look at what's going on in the landscape outside is important. Identifying your priorities and or identifying the risks and prioritizing them. What is the biggest risk versus what is unlikely, and then focusing efforts on addressing the most urgent or the most likely risks. Obviously, assessing future options. If X happens, then we do Y. And this is how we know that it's going to happen by establishing timelines, identifying decision points, creating implementation plans for actions, and assigning responsibilities for who's going to do what when. And in doing this planning and communicating this scenario planning to your stakeholders, it helps to retain and increase their confidence in your organization and your ability to adapt if and when something happens, right? And that's important when you're looking at retaining funding that you have. Um, uh, you want to reassure both the folks you serve, your staff, your donors, that you have a plan and that you are prepared to act uh, if and when something happens. And there are several things you need to do in order to embark on scenario planning. You need to know where you are now. You know, how much money do you have in the bank? How liquid is that money? Um, how long will that money last? All of those kinds of things. Not the fun part, obviously. Delivering on your mission and delivering on your programs is exciting. Um, Digging into the weeds on the finances for a lot of us is not nearly as exciting as delivering on the program and helping the people we want to help. Understanding your mission drivers. What is it that really makes your mission run? Um, Again, identifying the risk factors you potentially face, prioritizing your objectives, determining your action options, putting in place an implementation plan, an implementation process, and then communicating that plan out both internally and externally. I really want to emphasize that scenario planning is a group activity. If you are an executive director on this call, this is not just your job. Yeah, you need to have everybody involved. It requires that the board be involved. It requires obviously you and your leadership team, and your staff should be involved. Scenario planning should be a all hands on deck process. It may not be that everybody's at every meeting, but you need to have the right people in the room so that you make sure you're getting perspectives from everyone. And so that when you do have a plan, everyone is invested in the success of that plan. You know, you don't want to develop a plan and then just tell everybody what it is. You really need to make sure that everyone is involved in the process and invested in the plan's success. So in terms of your mission drivers and what to think about there, and this has to do with the finances and the outcomes, who do you serve? What do they need? What's the demand out there for what you do? How do your beneficiaries access what you do? How good is what you provide versus what other people provide, or the ways that they do it? What are your advantages in the marketplace that you work in terms of operations? What do you deliver? How do you deliver it? Who does it? Who makes sure it happens? When do you do it? How much does it cost to deliver it? That's a question that a lot of organizations struggle with. Is exactly, for every person we serve, how much does it cost us to serve them? And you really need to know that in order to plan for changes. And where do you do it? And obviously, what are your resources? Where's your money coming from? Because the bottom line is the two levers you have to pull in any situation have to do with the money coming in and the money going out. And you have to manage those levers in order to address any change. And then what's happening on the outside? Of the factors we went through at the beginning, what factors impact you as an individual nonprofit? Some may affect you and others may not. So you don't have to worry about those that don't. But I would encourage you, if you do planning, to think broadly about what impacts you, particularly with partners, because there may be a factor that doesn't impact you, but it impacts someone you work closely with. So if they're affected, you're going to be affected. What is it that's going to trigger some change or some action? Again, what poses the most risk? What additional information do you need? What do you not know that you need to find out? And then when are you going to know about it? What is the timeline? Is this something that's going to happen this month, next month, a year from now? Obviously, that plays in with how urgent any risk that you're facing is. So we're going to take about 8 to 10 minutes or so to break you all into breakout rooms. Danielle's going to do that. Danielle, is there anything you want to tell them as they get into their breakout rooms? We put some questions up here for you all to talk about in your breakout room. They're in the chat here. I believe they'll also be in the chat when you're in your breakout. And we'll come back after the breakout sessions and take a couple of minutes to get thoughts from you all. What came up in your session? So one of the things, as with any activity an organization does, is being really clear about what your objectives are when you start talking about scenario planning, and define what success looks like for the things that you want to achieve. Um, in our group, we talked a little bit about um, challenges with transportation and the increase in fuel and getting clients to the place they need to get to. And, if your funding isn't going up to match the increasing fuel cost, it's a problem. Um, so if that's the issue you're trying to solve, what is success going to look like if we're solving for that problem, or that's part of what we're solving for, right? Is it that we're able to get more people there for less money, whatever it is? Make sure you define what success looks like, whether that has to do with your programs and services, your operations, how you communicate with clients, and let them know what's going on, how you understand your financial position, the financial plan, communicate whatever you're doing to your funders, so that they're aware of what's going on. You really need to make sure you have A, clear objectives, and B, define success for yourself. That's you do need to write it down.
Yeah.
And it is, I will say, having been an executive director, if you are an executive director, it is a very lonely chair to be sitting in. There's stuff you can't tell other people. But in this kind of situation, including other people in that conversation actually helps them feel better about what's happening, even if it's a difficult situation. Because even if they're not telling you, they're worried about it. They know what's going on. And if they don't have an outlet for taking action, they have they're kind of left just holding that what's going to happen thing. So it really is, drawing on other people and the expert, in addition to just having other perspectives, and people think of things that, you haven't thought of, that, for whatever reason. It can actually serve as a really good tool for building organizational strength around change, because that's really what you're talking about. You're talking through sort of organizational transformation in some cases,
Yeah.
doing things differently than how we have done them before. Because the bottom line is, it's not going to go back to the way it was. So in terms of mitigating risk, obviously the first question I ask organizations, well, how much money do you have and how long is it going to last? That is a number one question, because obviously, and how liquid is it? How easily, what can you spend the money you have on? Because that, in many ways, defines the runway that you have to do the planning, implement whatever you want to do, and transform the organization. The more runway you have, the more options are available to you. So answering that question is one of the first ones you have to ask. Is there a way, once you know that, is there a way to build other reserves? Are there other options? Looking at what you do, are there things that you do that are either not on mission or lower in terms of your mission impact that you can think about not doing anymore, or doing less of, or handing off to another organization? Ask the question. It's not a fun question to ask yourself, but it's an important question to ask. There are a lot of organizations, a lot of times they compare what we're going through now with COVID. COVID was different because the government ponied up, and many organizations saw a big influence in funding. One of the things that happened when they saw the funding was, oh, we have this money. They started actually doing new things. And now that funding is not there anymore. And in fact, it's being cut back more. So really be honest with yourselves about what is it that is core? What do we do that we have to do to fulfill our mission? Are there things we shouldn't do anymore? Are there opportunities for partnership? That came up in the things you mentioned before. What conversations can we start to have with donors about what we're doing and how their funds are being spent and what we want to do? And it's really important to make sure, and your folks at the center can help you do this. Is it letting policymakers know what the impact is going to be on the state if you don't do what you do or you do less of it. Collecting data on your services and what you do and your impact in the community is tremendously important. We as nonprofits have not always been good at that. We just sort of use anecdotal, yes, we're really valuable. You need to, especially when funds are tight at the state level, you need to take data to them to show that if we stop doing this, you are going to have a problem, and this is going to be the scale of the problem you'll be facing. So that advocacy piece is really important. Once you get to deciding your actions, have a detailed strategy for each of the things you need to address. Outline those actions in a time frame. Is it something we're going to do this month, next month, 3 months, 6 months? You can't do everything at once, so you need to lay yourself out a timeline for when things are going to happen. Provide clarity around implementation. What's going to be done? How's it going to be done? When is it going to be done? Who's going to do it? And how much is it going to cost? Or how much is it going to save? And then develop a communication plan. How are you going to communicate your decisions, your transformation to the people you report to, your community, your funders, your staff, your board? And again, this is part of this communication piece. Um, you know, and this is examples of the kinds of things, not only for your community, but also for policymakers. If $100,000 cut is going to impact 10,000 people, what's going to happen to those people? Right? These kinds of questions are the questions or the information and the data you need to be able to provide. And so in wrapping up, successful scenario planning is board and staff working together, that you have alignment around what the true risks are to the organization and how urgent they are, that everyone shares an understanding of what is mission critical and what the full cost to deliver those programs is. A lot of nonprofits are not very good about knowing how much, if I serve one person, how much does it cost to serve that one person? Right? In many ways, nonprofits need to think like for-profit businesses. For-profit businesses do that all the time. If they make a candy bar, they know exactly how much that one candy bar costs when it goes out the door. And in some ways, we as nonprofits need to think about this in the same way. Clarity around your financial position, and reserves, fund availability, all of that. And then alignment on what actions are going to be taken, under what circumstances, when, what's going to get done, and who's responsible. And then really clear communication with everyone, internally and externally. I know we have only a couple of minutes left. Any questions, comments before I turn it back over to Debbie? And then these are just a few resources. I think Debbie's going to provide links to all of these. The one thing I really want to highlight is this last one, which is Dana's AAA Toolkit. That's what we're going to be talking more about next Wednesday, really digging into the tools that Dana has available to nonprofits to help with the scenario planning process. These resources are available to any nonprofit free of charge. You don't have to be a Dana member to get those. So I really encourage you, especially if you're coming in next week, you can take a look at those in advance. They're designed to be sort of do it yourself, but Dana also provides support to nonprofits to help them through the process, through myself or one of our consultants. And as I said at the beginning, we've in our discussions with your folks, we're going to make our services available to folks in New Jersey at Dana's rates. So if anyone's interested, you can reach out to me, and I'm happy to talk to you more about it. Debbie, you're on mute.
Thank you so much, Earl. This is great. A lot of food for thought. This is fairly dense. I think it's going to behoove us to watch the recording again. But I really appreciate your doing this. I just want to very quickly, I mentioned our Trends and Outlook survey report, which is on our website. There's an executive summary, and then there's the full report. I encourage you to look for that. The center also is, next slide. And have them up, and I didn't. Remember that we have, but with the Council of New Jersey Grant Makers, and thank you, Teresa, who's on this call. We have created this. It's based on Impala is the platform, but this is a New Jersey philanthropy hub. This is for New Jersey organizations to find, organizations find funding, find out who's doing what and where, and it's really a great tool. So it's free to New Jersey nonprofits for the next 3 years, thanks to some very generous donors who have made this possible. So please let your development people know and take a look and go in and poke around. And I'll be sending you a link to a webinar that gives you the instructions on how to use it. Okay. Then I just want to mention some upcoming events. Go to our calendar. And we have tomorrow, I referred to the event tomorrow, Beyond the Rulings, where we have an attorney, Lloyd Freeman, who is fantastic. He's looking at what really is legal and what is not legal in the discrimination world, and then other issues that we have around that space. And there is also going to be, that's until 12, and then at 1 there's lunch at 1. I mean, it's at 1 o'clock. We will start. We have the Rutgers legal law schools legal clinic interns who will be there to answer questions and help you with any questions you might have, as well as some people from the support center who will be talking more about helping people with nonprofit management questions. Next week, I put the link in the chat. Next Wednesday at the same time, Earl will be presenting part 2 of scenario planning, and I hope you will join us. We also have a speed networking event on next Thursday, a week from Thursday. And May 10th, we have our monthly Policy World Wednesdays. So plan to join us and check that calendar for all kinds of other events. There's a lot going on. And send us your events. We also have our annual conference on December 2nd. So just, mark your calendars. We're working on that. Danielle does a lot of the heavy lifting for that. So we're a lot of progress is being made. Get it on your calendar. Also, Just want to mention to those of you who are not members, membership in the center is on a sliding scale so that it is adjusted by the size and budget of the organization. It is an investment in your organization. There are free benefits that we provide and savings that you get in anything that we charge for. You get at least 30% saving. So those of you who are not members and are on this call, we have a 10% discount code. You can go in in the next month if you decide to join. You can use the discount code TOMATO. There are no caps. It's all lowercase, and that will give you that 10% discount to get you started. So finally, I just want to thank Earl and all of you for attending. And some of the people who registered were not able to attend, but everybody will be getting the follow-up letter, the recording, a link to the recording, and the slides.